Hello, and welcome to Unsheathed with your hosts, Kyle Gold and Cam Hirosaki. We hope that you enjoy the program. Please stick around afterwards. There'll be cake and blowjobs.
All right, we're about ready to go here. We want to thank all y'all for coming. Welcome to Unsheathed Live, the first anniversary of our first live show, which was here at Rainforest 1 year ago today.
Yes, we're inaugural.
Just out of curiosity, how many of y'all were here last year at the show? Awesome. Thank you for coming back. We must be doing something right.
Yay, we're not terrible.
Well, let's not just say that.
We're terrible in an entertaining way, maybe. I am Kyle Gold, for those of you who don't know.
And I am Cam Hirosaki, and I'm here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff.
Which is what he does best, and I'm here to make you think about sex and get happy.
I like sex.
See, it's working already. Well, we're real excited to be back here at Rainforest. Rainforest always does a great job with writing panels. We want to thank all of the folks who brought beverages and refreshments for us. We have some Coke Zero. We have a couple very nice bottles of wine here. And I'm sure we will go through many of them during the course of this show. Are we starting with our revealed secret, or are we going to take a couple questions first? All right.
We gotta warm ourselves up first.
Are you cold?
Do you need a glass? Is that what you're after?
I certainly can.
Courage. Who needs a glass? Drink from the bottle.
See, this is...
No, because that would make me a lush, and I'm not quite one of those yet.
This is why us authors like Sofa Wolf. They provide us with nice stuff like glasses for alcohol. I'm just going to drink the Coke right from the bottle, if that's all right.
I was going to say, because that's their greatest, contribution to the furry writing community. I'd be very sad.
It's always the little extras, that really make the difference.
Just the perks.
Yep. So how's everybody doing? We are excited to see all these people here. We've been doing this for over a year now. I forget when our actual anniversary was.
It was in August.
But I do remember that it was after our first live show at Rainforest that we really got excited about keeping it up and keeping going, because so many people showed up, even without having heard of what we were doing, and really had a good time, and we just loved the energy we felt. So we're really excited to be continuing on with this. I don't think if you had told us back in August that we'd be doing this a year later that we would have believed you, but...
Yeah. Also, I remember when we asked how many people had heard of us at last year's show, 3 people in the room raised their hands or something.
Yeah,
and
something
now
like that.
We've got, the
well, we didn't actually ask
complete.
who's heard of us, but they were here last year, so I'm assuming they'd heard of us.
No, I mean, last year when we asked.
No, but we didn't ask this year if they've heard of us, but I'm assuming that, the con book wasn't very detailed about what we do here.
It's like if you have to ask, you'll never know.
Right. Well, that's all we had to say. What do you guys want to talk about?
Sex.
All right. Go ahead.
I guess I've been overruled.
Nobody wants to talk about death? Oh, Agatha Christie, there's death.
Yay.
Death and sad.
Yes.
Who's got a question? All right. Speaking to the microphone.
In Midwest Fur Fest, I bought your Unsheathed Podcast Volume 1 CD compilation. Will there be a Volume 2?
There already is a
There
Volume 2, I
actually
believe.
is a Volume 2. We had it out at Anthrocon. We've had it at a couple conventions since then, and I think we have some here.
It'll be here tomorrow.
It will be here tomorrow at the Sofa Wolf table. It includes episodes 20 through 44, and a couple of interesting stories,
including the legendary Unsheathed Presents number 4.
The legendary Unsheathed Presents number 4 is on there.
Did you guys include a picture, the picture that Zouch drew of it?
We do not.
No, we didn't. Actually, what would have been more entertaining would to have a picture of Cam Hirasaki's reaction to certain parts of it. But sadly, I think until somebody develops a way to download them from people's brains, I'm the only one that saw it because Kit was focused on recording and we didn't have a mirror there.
Seriously, like, as amusing it is to listen to that, like, if you had been in the room when we were recording that, it was that much more. I don't even have an adjective to put there beyond more. Nothing does it justice.
The DVD also contains a recording of Cam Hirasaki reading a couple of his stories. I think at least Tilo and the Desk Husky.
Yes.
And was the pizza story on there too? Or was that a later one?
One of the... yes.
It is on there.
I believe the pizza story was on the actual feed, but that means it's included on the disc.
The pizza story, by the way, Cam Hirasaki wrote years and years ago.
Many moons ago.
He and you can tell because nobody dies in it. And when he posted it, he actually was very nervous and asked me if I thought he should post it because he said, "It's very porny, even for me." And it has, I believe it's one of your more popular stories to date.
I think it has since gone on to become my most popular one, which kind of makes me a little sad.
But it is a very cute story, and it is very porny. The DVD also has a recording.
Kyle does the voice of a coyote.
I do. Actually, is it a coyote or a wolf?
No,
I thought it was a wolf.
No, he's a
He's a coyote?
Yeah.
Okay. He
But
was
he's-
deep. He was
but
big
he's
and
buff and
buff.
growly.
He was buff and growly. That was fun.
So that happened.
And then it also has a recording of me reading the first chapter of the Out of Position sequel, which I will also be doing following this podcast. And you should still go buy the DVD even if you stay for the reading because it has substantially changed in between the time I read it 4 months ago and now. And it will probably change again before it comes out in print. But I think, as I've said before, for people who heard me read it at Furry Fiesta, it changed quite a bit between Furry Fiesta and the reading that's on the DVD, and then it's changed again between then and now. So I just, even though I thought it was a solid chapter as I was reading it in February, it's undergone many changes.
What would make Kyle super happy is if you listen to his reading at this convention, and then go back and listen to the DVD and go, "Wow, this version sucks." It's a good thing you fixed this, Kyle.
Yes.
He would love that.
I would love that. So you should go buy Unsheathed Presents #2. Cam and I will sign it if you find us, and so will Kit.
I'll sign anything you want. Wait, not anything.
What's the Penny Arcade guys rule?
Oh, if it doesn't burn, bite, or sting.
Burn,
Yeah.
sting, or bite. Yeah, they'll sign it. I think that sounds like a pretty good rule.
Although I was considering I bet I could make a loose effects on tapestries and people would still come on to me.
Well, yeah, it's tapestries. That's what.
Are you logged into tapestries?
That's what
Ergo, you're
people
looking
do.
for sex.
I mean,
yes.
yeah.
Producers is a big sex party.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's the Unsheathed Volume 2, and thank you for providing us with an opportunity to plug our product that did not look like we specifically planned it. We also still have Unsheathed Presents Volume 1, where you can hear all of the horrible awkwardness of the first few episodes before Kit took over and made us sound good.
Back during the dark times.
Yes. When we were just like, we'll just talk into our computers and then post it online, and it'll be great.
USB headset and the laptop? Great.
Sure, why not? Although that does have the origin of the otter who may or may not be wearing pants.
Yes, it does. We would never have had that without that. So.
No, that's true. Anyway, any other questions? Anything else people want to chat about? Fellow all the way in the back in the tasteful green hat.
Hello, I am Kytless Dragon of KytlessDragon.com, host of the Adult Dragon panel at Further Confusion. Anyway, yes, that was a plug. I was curious if you had considered making a calendar featuring all the various characters from your novels.
Well, NA.
Preferably with Wang.
That's a very big challenge.
And I'm not certain that's appropriate.
That doesn't mean you can't still do it.
Well, I was going to say, when has that ever stopped me? But
Yeah.
The calendar, unless you're thinking you'd want calendar pages with big passages of words on them, that's something that we'd have to work out with the artists, because I don't own the rights to the images of the stories, which is why if you look at the Kindle editions, a lot of the ones that I've put up don't have the images with them, because the artist, it's not that the artist wouldn't allow me to do it, it's just that it's a lot easier just to do it myself with the text and throw the text up there. Same thing would apply for the calendar. I mean, I basically have to go to an artist and say, hey, if you want to put together a calendar with a lot of the pictures you did, which are your property, from my books, that's okay with me. And they'd be like, I know. But hey, I'm certainly not opposed to that. I think Sarah Palmer has a ton of great images from the Argea books, and maybe after the second Out of Position book comes out, there will be a Devin Lee calendar.
I think that we should have like the 2010, 2011 2-year Summerhill calendar, which each month is like a different picture of K.M. Hirosaki getting more and more frustrated with this story that he can't get right.
Or you could have the Summerhill Word a Day calendar.
Then it'll be like November. Just like
But I like the idea of the Word a Day calendar, because it would just be the story with one word every day.
I don't know if that would make more or less sense.
On the right pace, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, up top.
A calendar of K.M. Hirosaki draped across a nice sports car.
But that's a full glass of wine question there.
I thought that was implied.
That or Kyle needs to snap a picture of KM every time he gets flustered and just have one of those every month.
Oh, I think we were...
That would be a picture a day calendar.
I was saying it's a good thing that cameras don't run on film anymore, because you'd run out of that real quick.
Oh, yeah. Plus, it would be embarrassing taking it to be developed.
Why do you have all these pictures of this person blushing, and why is he never wearing pants?
Which is... Sometimes some questions answer themselves, which is why they invented Polaroid cameras, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for porn.
I want, like, the more you know star to, like, go behind your head.
In fact, I have a friend who will go on at length about all the many technological developments that were driven by porn. So, DVDs, yeah, exactly.
3D. Blu-ray. No, Blu-ray was propagated by porn.
Bad Dragon.
But to sort of wrap up that question, I'm certainly not opposed, and I'm very much in favor of any accessory merchandise to my novels that I don't have to do a lick of work for. So I think a calendar is a fine idea, and I will get right on it. Who's next? The gentleman in the Moogle hat, who we recognize from last year. Welcome back.
Okay, for someone who hasn't read any of your books yet, sorry, I was waiting until this year to buy one. Which would you say is a good one to start with?
Yes.
Oh, golly. It depends on what you like. The Argea series are all kind of medieval, Renaissance fantasy. The other books are more contemporary. I would honestly recommend that someone who's not familiar with my work start with the Collection X, because that's a collection of 10 short stories by 10 different adult authors, and the stories, frankly, are terrific in it. And setting aside the one I wrote, which I'm not passing judgment on, KM has a story in it. 2 of the stories from that volume were nominated for Ursa Majors. Neither of them was mine. Not Tubes and White Yodis. God, who else is in that? Poet Tigress is in that. Jonas is in that. Fuzzwolf's in it. Pyro Stinger. Alex Vance has a story. And BC Courier. Is that 10?
That's 10.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, because then it'd be all like in public and they'd come after me for that. But I recommend X. It gives you a feel for a lot of people's different styles. And in terms of novels, I don't know. What do you think? What's a good gateway Kyle Gold novel?
Oh, it depends on if you prefer otters or football.
I kind of like. I would kind of say Waterways. Waterways is probably a good starter. It's contemporary world, so there's not a lot of where the hell am I, and there's not a whole lot of sex in it, which is a good or a bad thing. I know. Sofa Wolf has been apprising me that many of my novels have sold out already, so hurry to Sofa Wolf tomorrow and pick up your novels before they go.
Kyle needs more Coke Zero.
I haven't broken into this one yet, and I have another whole 6-pack floating around here somewhere. Oh, it's down there behind me. We should maybe. Would you be offended if we pass that around to people? As long as I'll keep one of them for me.
Yeah, but I also bought you two other bottles, and I want you. I'm trying to convert you.
Oh, Pepsi. Oh,
Pepsi One.
I've had Pepsi One. I've had Pepsi Free and whatever.
Watch, we'll get them hooked on Canadian Coke Zero. And just be jonesing for
I'm really amused. I have to say, Dragon Man Mike bought us a Canadian Coke Zero, and I know Canadian Coke uses real sugar, so I'm wondering if Canadian Coke Zero uses real not sugar or not real. I'm really kind of puzzled by this.
You know,
I'm curious to see if it tastes any different.
all I can say is that when you mentioned Pepsi Free, all I can think of when I hear that is that really bad joke from Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, exactly. Give me a Pepsi Free.
Yeah.
Kid, if you want a Pepsi, you're going to have to pay for it. Oh, God.
Welcome to Grey Muzzle Cats.
Yeah, no, seriously. All you kids out there 20 and below, there was a great movie called Back to the Future. Go out and rent it.
They're doing their anniversary version this year. The 15th anniversary of Back to the Future.
After the podcast, Kyle and I will be listening to Huey Lewis and.
Yes.
Bring back Crystal Pepsi.
I'm actually kind of waiting for 2015, which is one of the year they travel to in Back to the Future 2, and I'm wondering if they're going to do like a big promotion, or if they're going to kind of force the Cubs in Florida to be in the World Series somehow.
Go back in time, put some money on the Cubbies.
Wow, did we answer the question? I forget what the question was.
Oh, which book he should start with?
Oh, are we still on that one?
Yes.
Oh, I forgot about that one a long time ago. I think maybe I need to try this Canadian Coke Zero.
As a non-biased party, since I'm not Kyle, honestly, if you're into the medieval fantasy thing, you could either start with Vol, or honestly, I think Shadow is a pretty good jumping-on point for that series, too, because you don't need all the backstory from the previous books if you want to start with that.
And I
that's
think,
more,
honestly,
that's more
Shadow's a better
action
book,
thriller than it is, like, political intrigue and romance, so it is pretty different than the first set of the Argaea books. And, Waterways and Out of Position are both sort of contemporary, but one of them is more about, high school youth, and the other one's about football, so...
Yeah, and Out of Position has a lot more explicit stuff in it. Depending on your tolerance
the
for
Wang
or desire
quotient
for that kind of thing.
keeps on getting referenced
Yes.
this episode.
Yes, well.
Well, for a bad thing, we wouldn't be running this podcast.
And for K.M. Hirasaki's books, I recommend you
Wait.
jump about a year in the future and read Summerhill.
Yeah. It will have been awesome.
Yes. It will be.
So that's actually about 10 years for.
Well, I was going to say 6 months, but then I figure if it takes him 6 months to finish it, then so anyway, I was trying to be
I
nice.
just think his head's going to explode. It's going to take him 10 years to regenerate his head back, so he'll actually be able to work on it.
I don't think it'll take that long. You're in a slow period now, but you'll get in a groove.
I'll get back there.
Yes. How the Otter got his groove back.
Unsheathed presents number 6.
Don't give me any ideas.
I did that enough already. That's how this whole thing started, was here last year.
It was, actually.
Damn you, Rainforest.
Well, we'd already kind of done that, and then it was you people in the Rainforest audience that said we should write stories about each other again.
Actually, I believe it was you who said, "Hey, people at Rainforest, should we do this?"
You can't prove that. There's nothing recorded from that. Oh, wait.
It's not online anymore.
What's this thing in front of my muzzle again?
Okay.
Don't answer that. Somebody ask a question. Back there.
Let's get hot and dirty. How do you write really hot sex?
Wow. Well, Pizza Otter, why don't you answer that one first?
Okay, well, now there are a number of schools of thought on this. There's the Tab A into Slot B school, and then there's the why should I care that these characters are having sex at all school. I kind of usually subscribe to the second one of those two.
I agree.
Basically, I think it's equal parts focusing on the emotions that your focal character is feeling and trying to get a good visual sense of what's happening. And finding a way to mingle both of those so that you're not getting long-winded, but you're still getting the point across as to what's happening.
Well, that was like the unsexiest answer to that question ever.
Thank you, I tried.
Yes, I know. I think it helps to have had really hot sex. As with anything else, it is possible to write about things you have not experienced. I have never actually played the game of football, and yet I wrote a whole freaking book about it.
2 books now.
But
I've never shot anyone in the head.
Not with a gun.
Oh, the stories none of you will ever hear.
However,
There's 2 balls in front of him.
I think that, so sort of building on that, it again, sort of think back to, I don't want to say like just write your own experiences, but it goes back to a lot of what is the character feeling, what is the character thinking during the time, and the more energy you can give the text, I find, the hotter the scene is. Setting aside completely the whole idea of writing a fetishy sex scene, in which is a very trickier thing than you might imagine. It's kind of easy, I guess, to write for a fetish you have. It is possible to write for a fetish you do not have, but you have to kind of understand it in order to be able to really pull it off. And because if you don't really understand it, you tend to exaggerate the wrong things, and then people are kind of like, well, this seems like it might be hot, but why are you talking so much about the toenails? That's not part of it,
Think about how, like, when straight people talk about what they imagine gay sex to be like and how wrong they get it.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
Yeah.
Really, it just...
So which one of you is the woman?
Like everything else, if you want to write a scene about anything, sex or not or whatever, that you want to really grab the reader with, you want to make the reader feel what you're feeling, you have to be able to really channel what you're feeling. There's a quote, actually I played with my FA profile today, which only matters in that I put a quote up there from sports writer Red Smith, who said, "Writing is easy. I just open a vein and bleed." And that's what you got to be able to do. You got to be able to put your own experiences out there on the page as much as you can.
So in other words, you're saying practice, practice, practice.
I am a firm believer in that. And by the way, your Coke Zero is excellent, although I do not detect any variation in the taste. But I appreciate the chance to try.
With your socialized Coke Zero.
Yes. Socialized. It came free with the hospital. I don't know. It's not allowed to carry guns. I don't know. It's now worth as much as an American Coke Zero, apparently.
Now with 12% more Stephen Harper.
No, there's a whole article about how the Canadian dollar is now worth as much as the American dollar, and so there's all these Canadians.
Yeah, I tried to make fun of one of my Canadian friends the other day about Canadian money, and it's like, actually.
Yeah, well, and so all these Canadians are coming and buying up property like in Phoenix, because nobody wants houses, nobody who lives around Phoenix wants houses there. So
they do know that's on the wrong side of the states from where they are, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think they're just like, oh God, we want to get the hell out of here in winter, and Phoenix. So Phoenix is tolerable in winter. I've kind of been there. Over there, right behind the microphone panther.
Kyle, will you be working with Blotch again?
The question, will I be working with Blotch again? In a general sense or in a specific sense? I mean, the answer is yes. So,
For the cover of the next Out of Position book.
yes, Blotch is doing the cover and all the illustrations for the next book. We will hopefully be kind of the tentative plan, which I have not really discussed with the Sofa Wolf people yet, is to sort of do a big unveiling of the cover at Midwest Fur Fest. I have not made the title of the book public yet. That's because I thought I knew what it was, and then about a week ago it changed. So,
Yeah, when you texted me that, I was like, oh, damn it, are you serious?
and then you made me sad,
Well, it was more like, what was the other one again? Which of the ones these do I like more?
which showed me that the new one was probably better, because he was like, I don't even remember what the other one you said you were going to use was. So, but I think we've settled on it, and Blotch is doing the cover. We should have the cover in hopefully about a month. So we might show the cover before MFF, but there would be a big unveil in there with the title and the cover and all kinds of good stuff. I might read another chapter from the book or something. We'll see.
There probably won't be Wang.
Probably.
Not on the cover.
Well, no, not on the cover. Although the thing Blotch just posted, if you saw it, was supposed to be a cover, and there is Wang on it. It was just going to be obscured by the logo. So. It was a capital A, I believe. So yes, Blotch is terrific to work with. We're mutual fans, and I'm happy that they actually expressed interest in working on the sequel of the book, because they feel kind of proprietary towards the characters now.
Even if you wrote lies about football.
It is. My book is full of lies, by the way. All of them are.
Hey, Kel. First,
Yes.
I wanted to say I'm a big fan of your books. I've read
Thank you.
Bull so far and Out of Position, and I love them. I
Thank
wanted
you.
to read Waterways, but it's sold out at the Sofa Wolf bookstore, so not this time, unfortunately. So, as you know, Graveyard Greg is releasing his new novella, The Loveless, and I was wondering if you've read it yet. I'm thinking of getting it maybe, but wondering what you...
I've not yet had the chance.
Okay, and do you ever go out of your way to read other adult furry fiction, like even now, to like get an inspiration or ideas, or?
I mostly read, when I read adult furry fiction, it's mostly K.M. Hirasaki's.
The twice a year I write stories now.
Yes, whenever he writes.
Yes.
Or for Unsheathed Presents Odd Numbers.
Has Hirosaki read the book?
I have not. I think it actually just was released.
Yeah, it's just
today,
debuted here. I just got to the con like 3 hours ago.
Oh,
so
you didn't get any like preview copies?
we haven't had a chance.
Oh, okay.
I've been preparing for this.
In general, as I tell people who write me and ask me to read their stories, I don't have a whole lot of time to read. I have a writing group that I read the stuff that they produce. That's like 3 or 4 other people with KM and a couple of our good friends. I read more kind of mainstream fiction, not even like science fiction, but God, what was the thing that I read recently that was real good that I talked about?
Oh,
that book.
Yeah.
So
Damn it.
things like that book by that guy
Yeah.
that was really good. But and recently I've been working so hard on the Out of Position sequel that I have not read anything except this little graphic novel series, which took me all of an hour and a half to read. I think the whole thing through.
Which series, sorry?
It's called Amulet. It's by the guy who did the Flight compilations, and it's really
Kazuki
good.
Buishi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kazuki. Yes. Exactly. A friend of mine loaned them to me, and so I read them, and we're sort of passing them around. But yeah, I generally don't have a whole lot of time to read, which makes me sad. And if I can remember the name of that book, I'll tell people, because I'd recommend it.
I remember you talking
totally.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to picture carrying it around.
Because I remember it wasn't palimpsest.
No, although I brought that with me, and I'm going to read that. Palimpsest is actually a... you should talk about that, actually, because that was good.
Yeah.
It's a good book, and I love... The author is actually really cool. She writes really good live
I've mentioned
journals.
palimpsest on the podcast a couple of times before, but for people who haven't heard that or who are just here and don't listen to it regularly, it's this really strange book where it actually manages to do a great job of something I think that we would both really be able to relate to is making sex an integral element of a larger plot without making it pornography.
Right.
Basically, the whole way the story works is that there's this like fantasy dream world that people can go to when they sleep, but you can only go there by having sex with somebody else who's been there. And the story sort of follows like the links between these people who are basically like have how you end up there and whatnot.
And that won a Lambda Literary Award.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of a neat concept.
It is actually. It's actually really well executed too.
The first person to get there.
Oh, that's part of the story. There you go. Mm-hmm. So you're thinking it through already. You're applying logic. That makes you a good reader.
Well done.
What exactly is the name of it? It's called Palimpsest.
Palimpsest.
I'll write it up here for people who can see.
Please do. So, yeah, that's the answer, I'm afraid. Does anyone else have a question while KM is writing? We have a question from the ferret in the back row, with the tasteful hat, I might add. Why? You're all the way in the back, and
I'll move up here.
You had said you wanted to come sort of gawk at our recording equipment, and you can't do it from all the way back there.
I will after this podcast, I guarantee you.
All right.
So good evening. I'm Roland, co-host of Unfurled, unfurled.net.
Hey,
I'm
Roland.
sorry I had to.
We did like 3/4 of an interview with you, and then have failed to do the last quarter for like the past 2 months. We apologize for that.
Yeah, it's actually we'll get to that. Hirosaki, I'm sorry on a note that I had to burst your bubble about the superiority of your American dollar.
Okay.
So anyway, my question is...
How many Canadians are in this audience?
Wow.
We're spreading.
We're invading your cause.
Look again. These people are now diamonds.
Does that mean we become vampires and they don't sparkle?
Now you're worth even more.
Okay, but based on previous scenes from, say, Out of Position, where there's big burly men jumping through windows, people having sex in the hallways, is that how many of your scenes exactly are based off of real experiences?
Who is jumping through windows?
Doesn't he?
And the sex in the hallway, by the way, is in Bridges, not in Out of Position. Which you might have said Bridges. I couldn't quite hear, but I heard you say Out of Position. Okay, who was jumping through windows? I don't remember that.
The guy from the Bed Intruder song.
Oh,
he's climbing in your windows.
He's climbing in my windows.
Snatching your people up.
I will simply say that all of the things that I write are in part based on, at least from a psychological point of view, everything that I write comes from me. So.
Has there ever been a flustered Kyle Gold?
Oh, I've done it. I've managed it a couple of times.
He's flustered me a couple times. I'm going to actually not say how many of those were based off real experiences, because a small percentage of the things I write about are, but a large percent are not. But I prefer that you guys guess which is which.
I wrote the first draft of a story that's not available yet anywhere, but that one was actually one of the most autobiographical stories I've written in a long time. But not the hot, sexy parts, just like the really like awkward and like unnerving parts.
Yeah, I was going to say the stuff from my books is based off personal experiences. Is more like the feeling of distance that you get from someone when you haven't talked to them in 6 months and all that, and not so much the oh hey look, we're having sex in the hallway.
This
not that I'm saying one way or the other, but
I don't want to be in it anymore.
I want this relationship to be over and you to be out of my life. Well, there's a good example of a nonfiction book to read. David Foster Wallace. Yeah. Any of his collections of essays are terrific. We felt sadness at his passing, but he did give us the I want this conversation to be over and you out of my apartment,
yes.
Which is awesome. Any more? I think people have kind of quieted down a little bit. So Kit and I have been talking for a little while about this secret project we've done, which even Hirosaki-san has not seen. Would you
I have not.
pull the screen down for us, please? This. Can someone turn the lights a little bit? So how many people in the room have read Out of Position? How many people have read it? How many kind of know the story, even if you haven't? Okay. Yes.
I've read that much.
Okay. So, I mean, should I just tell them what it is first, or should I just... How do you want to introduce it? Just...
That's a good question.
Okay. Anyway.
It's a little... So it's a little project that Kyle and I have talked about for a while, and something we always wanted to see was basically the characters visualized a little bit more dramatically and perhaps animatedly than in the past. So we tried to figure out how to make that happen. And this is step 2 of probably a 3-part process.
Right. And a lot of you who follow my live journal might know that when Out of Position came out, I released a song list that was a lot of songs that made me think of it. And the last song was kind of this sappy little ballad by Jason Mraz called I'm Yours, which was very amusing and has become one of Kit's and my favorite songs. But the first time we really heard it and listened to the words, we just thought, wow, this is about Dev and Lee. It's about two people trying to fight against something keeping them apart and saying that being together is worth more than the price we pay for defying all these things keeping us apart. And so when we started thinking about a little project, we naturally wanted to combine that song into whatever theme we had for the book. And well, this is what we've got so far. So the artists on that, huge thanks to Don Ryu and Amon Omega. They put it all together. Don Ryu did the storyboards and backgrounds and a lot of the timing. Amon Omega did the character designs. The reason that a few of the frames were in color is they were coloring some of them for reference. So that's just an animatic. We would very much like to become a finished animation. That costs a little bit more money, so we're exploring options for that right now, but we're still real excited with how that came out.
You should keep buying our DVDs to support our podcast. If you want to see more things like this and more, please visit
KM, this is the first time you've seen it, I think.
It is, yeah. That was actually super cute, and I totally did not miss the one moment where you and I actually made eye contact during that.
Yes. I figured you wouldn't.
Yeah, I just looked out, it's like, oh, damn it, he's already looking at me. I don't know if anyone else in the audience noticed, but I'll keep that to myself.
You know, I also want to give special thanks to Kit, who was real instrumental in just kind of saying, let's go forward with this, let's drive it through. He's done 80% or 90% of the project management with the artists, and really this is all very much thanks to him. So. Cheers, honey.
So that's really cool, and it's one of the things that the Kyle Gold books and so forth, and I think just seeing the fandom mature is we're starting to see more stuff like this out there. So I have complete confidence that we'll have this as a completely animated, 3-minute music video up on YouTube, which we'll ask you all to watch 100,000 times each.
And recommend to your friend.
Get it out on the Twitter sphere.
And like it on Facebook or whatever it is the kids do these days.
I'm pretty sure MySpace isn't cool anymore.
No.
Twitter's cooler.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. MySpace, what's that?
And Don, the two artists, by the way, Don Ryu, DONRYU on Fur Affinity, and is Alex just Amon Omega on FA? AMONOMEGA. Awesome characters.
And we'll post that information on
you can hear Don Ryu ask us a question about graphic storytelling in our RMFC Live episode.
Oh, yeah. That's right. He was there.
Yeah.
And it was actually interesting doing the whole story, and we'll watch the storyboard too, but it basically was storytelling as well. It's like, how do you try to capture the characters and their feelings and their emotions and relationship in 3 minutes?
And these guys did just an amazing job. I mean, we gave them kind of a script, an outline of what we envisioned the events happening, and they're the ones that put the feeling into the characters. And we have the original storyboards that Don Ryu did, and we'll play that. I don't know if we need to do it now or we can do it at the end. We'll play it at the end of the podcast. But so that's real cool. And like Kit said, it's just this is such a creative fandom. I'm going off on one of my live show. Every time we do a live show, I have to talk about how amazing the fandom is. But yay fandom! All of you guys are awesome. Everyone out there has some kind of some kind of talent. Yes, go you.
I was going to say, everyone out there has some kind of talent, and if you don't, stay home and hide your shame. This is how you can tell the difference between me and Kyle.
Okay,
I'm kidding. This time.
Now I feel like we're in a sitcom or something. Okay,
Laugh track.
Laugh track. Yes.
Oh, you guys are good. We didn't even need to coach you on that.
Very nice.
See, look, at least now you do have talents.
Laugh on cue.
Hey, do not underestimate
Faking
the value
it is
of
what
that
might not have been
skill.
caught by the mic.
Yeah, do not underestimate the value of being able to successfully fake it. There are ways.
Oh yeah.
Actually, it sounds like.
Okay, it was not really a request for a demonstration. I don't know, Mike, are you up for that?
What?
He just said he could do it again with a mic.
I'm gonna go hide now.
Okay. Anyone else want to ask something? Talk about stuff? Come on, we're here for. I don't know how much longer are we here
what
for.
What time is it?
-4 minutes.
Is it -4? Well, we started late, so it doesn't count. Sure. The snow leopard up in the front.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is my fault.
First of all, thank you guys, because that was awesome. It was great to see your characters in actually in a visual form, since I'm an artist and that's what I'm used to, and that's actually where my question comes from. Do you guys, when you're writing, do you visualize? I mean, because like if I'm gonna draw someone's character or my own characters or something, then there's definitely a visualization, not just of the image I'm drawing at the moment, but of the kind of the whole scene. Do you do that as well when you're writing? And does that help you?
Yes, I mean, I obviously usually have a very strong visual image in my head. The trick is figuring out how much of that visual image to put onto the page.
Right.
It's very easy to go overboard with physical description, and depending on what it is you're describing, that can be very important. But if you're describing something just for the sake of describing it, then it sort of starts to slow things down, and it can sometimes even border on self-indulgent. But at the same time, if you don't describe enough, the reader doesn't what?
Nothing. So anyway, while KM's recovering,
I don't know what happened.
I don't visualize as completely as someone who's an artist would. I think I more visualize what I need to see for the story, what's important for the story, because I kind of want to leave it open enough that I'm not defining someone else's vision, because when the reader reads the story, they're going to have their own visions of the characters. If I'm asking an artist to illustrate the story, they're going to have their own visions, and I want to leave it open enough that all of those are valid and true. And especially although at the point where you have an artist illustrate something for a story, that kind of firms up what the characters look like. But as you saw, I mean, people who've read Out of Position, the characters in the book look different from in the animatic there, but you can still tell that they're the same. Yeah. So it's just different interpretations, and I try to keep it open. And partly, I think that's a failing on my part, because I don't visualize it that completely in my head because I'm lazy. And I don't. It's too much work to build a super complex description that I then have to write down on paper and remember every time. I'm like, whatever. He's a fox. I know what foxes look like. He wears stylish clothes, so if at some point I'm writing and I'm like, oh, he's wearing a torn Def Leppard t-shirt, I'm like, that doesn't really quite fit.
And yeah, in my case, I tend not to put all that description into scenery. Is one of the things that I think is kind of a failure. People say that, like, oh, you're good with like characters and emotions, but I don't really describe where things are happening. And you want to have enough that the reader doesn't get lost.
Oh, and that is something I go back and catch in edits all the time, because I'm like, wow, this whole conversation is just taking place in space.
Yeah.
And you have to, one of the things that we took a little seminar about is you have to use the locations where the characters are. So it's not just visualizing the characters, but it's visualizing the locations. And there's places in books that are as strongly or more strongly realized than the characters. If you take Tolkien as an example, the people, the movies kind of concretized it for everybody, but everybody had a real clear picture of what the Shire looked like. And probably more so than could tell you what like any one of the individual hobbits looked like. I mean, you knew in general what a hobbit was, but how is Sam different from Frodo or whatever, but you knew the Shire. The Shire has this real distinct characteristics about it. So yeah, a lot of times locations and characters and
Yeah, like bringing around to sort of, tie into our own episode here. In Palimpsest, the description of this dream city is extremely well done. It's actually very impressive, and, reading stuff like that reminds me, like, maybe I could stand to put a little more effort into stuff like this in my own writing, rather than saying, oh, these characters are in a club, and then for the rest of the scene, nothing relevant to that happening,
right?
Comes into this, the conversation or the scene. It's like, oh, well, this could be happening anywhere. Like you said, if it sounds like it's just sort of in space, it loses some of the realism.
The book that I read was Whistling in the Dark by Tamara Allen.
That's right.
That's right. And it was one last year, Out of Position sort of co-won that Best Gay Novel Award from the Rainbow Awards. Like 500 books enter, one book leaves, or two books actually, as it turned out. But it tied with this Tamara Allen book. And it was quite good. It was not furry, but it was a neat period piece. It was the 1920s in New York City, and she did a great job with the characters and everything, and I wrote a nice review about it, and I know her on LiveJournal, so that was cool. We had somebody over here with a... Nope.
I actually have a part B to that.
Sure.
Okay, so part B to that. I know when I'm drawing, if I'm drawing porn, then the scene, the background quickly becomes less important than everything else for me. I just want to draw the porn, and that's usually what if I'm doing a commission, that's what they want it for as well. So when you guys are writing an erotic story, does the background, so to speak, become less important?
It depends on where the scene's taking place. I mean, if the characters, are they having sex on a bed, or are they having sex in the back of a subcompact hatchback? I mean,
and are they in their own bed, or are they in someone else's bed?
Yeah.
Actually, so that is a nice segue, which I generated myself. Some of you, I know, go me. As some of you know, I follow sports, and there was a documentary on which I think I tweeted about the friendship between Chris Evert and Martina Navratilova. And part of why I was intrigued by it is one of the things Martina said was that coming out as a gay athlete was difficult for her, but Chris was always in her corner about it. And they, people would ask her, "What's it like sharing a locker room with a gay woman?" And Chris would be like, "Whatever. It's just like sharing a locker room with anybody." So anyway, they did this documentary, which was kind of cool, but I hadn't realized they were such close friends. And at one point, it was after Chris had kind of retired and Martina was still playing, and Chris said she met one of her future husbands at Aspen, and they were staying in Martina's place, and Martina made some comment like, "Oh, I should have sold that bed on eBay," but they didn't have eBay back then. And Chris was like, "Yeah, that's right. The first time we slept together was in your bed, in that big king-size bed." And she said, "Because I remember he afterwards, he said the first thing was, wow, I just slept with Chris Evert in Martina Navratilova's bed." Which I thought was an awesome line and was worth watching the whole documentary just for that. But
when you mention a time before eBay, my mind just wanders off.
I know it was a strange time. It was like right after the wheel was invented, and then 8 tracks, and then
And
CDs.
Back in the days of good Saturday morning cartoons and
Back when Saturday morning cartoons were real cartoons, not this Digimon
Yeah,
crap.
the Snorks.
Right.
Fuck yes.
Hong Kong Fooey.
#1 super guy.
Yes.
That's right.
Faster than the human eye.
Captain Planet.
But
Japanese.
So the background does make a difference. Are the characters at home in their own bed? There's a sequence. There's at least one scene in the Out of Position book where they kind of realize, oh, this is the first time we've had sex outside of the one apartment. If you're in a dirty, smelly hotel hallway, for our ferret in the back row there, all of that kind of comes into play as part of how the characters are going to interact in that scene. I don't know. That's all I got.
Yeah, like my mind just went to something about Summerhill that I probably shouldn't spoil, so I won't talk about it.
Right.
But I would say that there is a scene where I think that the background setting certainly plays a pretty intense part of it. But
I think it does. I think it plays like a 3,000 word part of it.
Okay, so maybe I don't always skimp on scenery and description.
Anyone else have a question there? I'm sorry.
Was that the chapter that I read?
No.
Because the chapter I read was super vivid background scene.
That's the part I took out. Damn it. You can see why I hate writing the story.
Gentleman over here.
I read both First and 10 and Waterways. Have you considered doing sequels, either of them, maybe 10 years down the road? Denoting how many things have changed and in what way, and how many things have remained the same.
What was the first one?
I think it's Out of Position.
Out of Position. Well, Out of Position, there is a sequel being written right now, actually almost done. It is done, to the Soul Wolf guys in the back. It is done, I promise you. It will be ready.
Hurry up.
Fox and the football playing tiger?
That's Out of Position. But I get asked a lot if I'm going to write a sequel to Waterways, and as my sort of stock answer to that is nothing is impossible, but I do not have anything planned right now. They had a story, it came to an end, and unlike the end of Out of Position, which left a lot of stuff unanswered, and I kind of knew I was going to have to write another one, at the end of Waterways, I liked the place the characters were in, and I didn't feel they needed to go any further. I didn't have anything else to tell about them. So until they knock on my door and tell me they have more story, I'm just going to leave them be where they are. If people have one more question, we can probably squeeze that in. Tal in the back. I'm sorry, I don't remember your species. Wolf?
Bull.
Bull. Bull.
Because bulls are so common.
Bulls are so common, apparently. So wolves tell me. In writing, and the same is true for any art form, be it music or drawing, anything. A lot of people I talk to, they talk a lot about the sort of the smaller scenes within the larger story. What I'm wondering, when you're, as an artist, when you're fleshing out an image, the big thing is, you have to sort of picture the image as a whole. Do you find that a little more difficult as a writer? Because you got to picture this whole huge timeline as a whole. And I'm just sort of wondering what your process for getting such a large span of story into your mind so that you can kind of start working on the details. How do you sort of lay it out in a way that you can later go back in and sort of fill it in as you go?
I have a big wall in my basement that is full of butcher paper and crayons. Also drugs.
Yeah. In my case, I actually can't form a full-on picture of what the story looks like until I've at least written a first draft. At least 95% of the time that's the case.
And I think that's generally more true than people want to admit it is.
Yeah.
Really, your first draft is how you discover the story. Once you're through with that first draft, you have a much better idea of what the story is, and then that's when you go back to the beginning and you say, wow, this doesn't fit the story at all.
Yeah, or like, this scene was building up to something that never played out, and this scene could better feed into things that, will happen later,
Right.
now that I know they're coming. Yeah.
And a more honest answer than what I said before, none of which was true, was simplify. You don't keep every tiny element of the book in your head at all times. You keep in this character with this general personality is following this path, and these are the way stations along the journey. And so at this point in the book, they're here. At this point in the book, they're here. At this point in the book, they're here. And so if, in chapter 21, they're doing something that they learned not to do in chapter 3, then you got to change that and take it out. Other than that, it's just a matter of, you finish it, you go set it aside for a month or two, go back and read through the whole thing again, and then you just get a sense of what fits and what doesn't.
I think sort of the writing equivalent of doing shading is sort of finding ways to sneak in, layered meanings on top of things, which, you don't see the patterns until you've already written it at least, once, and then,
right.
Build on what you've written before, and then, change things to sort of bring out and highlight, the areas that are most important, whether that's what they're going to be before you put them down the first time or not.
Oh, God, we could do a whole show on editing.
Yeah.
Not just for plot, for character, for theme, for language, for all of that stuff. We probably did. One more quickie behind the green fox in the corner. He's got black ears and black paws.
So
I can't guess hybrid species, I'm sorry.
So is it unusual to be able to see the entire story from start to finish without writing it down?
I wouldn't say it's unusual, it's uncommon.
I don't. Well, it's you're gonna have a vision when you start writing the story, but that vision is going to change as you write the story, and when you get to the end, chances are it's going to be a little different. It doesn't apply so much for short stories, but if you're writing a novel and you have this idea of what your story is going to be, at least my personal experience has been that by the time I get about a third of the way through the novel, I need to sit down and figure out what the rest of it's going to do, and then by the time I get 4 more chapters in, I've completely abandoned that outline, and I'm just writing it based on whatever happens next. And because I have outlines for at least 2 or 3 of my books, like Pendant of Fortune, there's all this stuff that I thought was going to happen and never did. So you have to kind of let yourself discover the story as you're writing it.
Yeah. A lot of it is, it's instinct, but I think it's learned instinct that comes from writing a lot and from reading a lot.
And, read stuff. Read people you admire who write the kind of stuff you want to write. Palimpsest is a great example. Read non-furry stuff, just because you don't want to be trapped in the jargon of furry and imagining, and not because you don't want to use the furry language, because that's fine if you're writing for a furry audience, but just so you can see how other people do things. Broaden your experience. The more stuff you can get out there and read, the better.
And we've name dropped a ton of authors and books on our show before.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's plenty out there that's worth reading.
David Mitchell, Kazuo Ishiguro. Who are some other ones we like?
There's another big one.
My favorite, sports. My favorite sports writer right now is Joe Posnanski. He writes for Sports Illustrated, but he also keeps a blog. And he writes these hugely long posts, but he writes about things like he'll get kind of caught up in numbers, but then he'll also get caught up in sort of the psychology behind sports and records, and how does it feel and what does it mean to people to do this, and what does sports mean, like to him growing up as a small boy in Cleveland, what did sports mean to him, and there's a lot of great character stuff in his blogs.
Another thing about how to write characters, David Sedaris.
David
I think,
Sedaris,
is a great example on that. I mean, he sort of takes it to caricature level, but that's sort of.
And if you like David
the building
Sedaris, Augustin Burroughs is hysterical.
Yes.
And they're both
Burroughs is
gay,
also
so
quite good.
you know, yay. In the club.
Go us. Yay, family.
Yes. Speaking of which, we did not make one crack about foosball turning gay. No high fives for us.
I know. He is, though.
You guys do what now?
We're planning. We got plots. Plots and schemes.
Let's just say that his kid. Oh, that's right.
We did. Well, no, kind.
Oh, you kind of did. You implied.
I think there was implication. It was a hidden blowjob reference.
Crouching tiger, hidden.
Blowjob. Not a reference to a hidden blowjob, but. Kit is giving us the wrap it up now signal. So we want to thank all of y'all for coming. Thank you. Oh dear.
Oh, that's terrific.
It is becoming a tradition for the talented snow leopard Xavier to present us with a little piece of art at each of these Rainforest shows, which is only one of the many reasons Rainforest is our favorite con to do a live show at.
That's right. And I have to say, despite the fact that this picture doesn't have a giant dripping erection, I like this one better than the first one.
I know. This is actually a fairly awesome...
yeah, that's really super... Oh, no, it doesn't reflect. There we go.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Thank you, Xavier. It is beautiful.
Same deal. If you scan it, I'll make sure it gets colored.
Awesome. I love it because it is the only place where I'm taller than KM Hirosaki.
Yeah, but I think that works.
But he's much more slippery.
Well, yes, he's an otter.
Well, I've also had like 2/3 of a bottle of wine.
Rainforest is awesome. You guys will always be our first live show, and that will always be special to us. And as always, we appreciate y'all coming out here to see us and the fun questions and discourse and everything that we have. And that's why we wanted to share our little animation with you guys. That, and this was the first con after it was ready. Sorry, did I spoil the moment? Okay. So with that said, we're going to leave you with the storyboard animatic. I will be sticking around for once we get sort of the podcast disassembled, and I'll do a little bit of a reading, and then I'll have a sort of more Q&A about
has a panel.
Q&A about my books. What?
So you theoretically have another panel.
Yeah,
but it's mostly
it all
just
kind
this.
of runs into it. All kinds of. It's just this, but not recorded. You know?
Yeah. And I'll be here too, I guess.
Anyway, rattling off the sort of closing credits. Our email is unsheathedpodcast@gmail.com. Send us questions for us to read on the air. If you are an international listener, please send us notes so we can see how far our corrupting influence is spreading around the world.
I know we've gotten at least as far as Australia.
That count, and Canada.
Yeah, the fabled Canadas.
I am Kyle Gold, all one word, on Twitter and LiveJournal, and I'm just Kyle on FA.
And I am KM Hirosaki on all of those various media sites.
And again, the talented artists responsible for the gorgeous work you've just seen are Don Ryu, DONRYU on Fur Affinity, and Amon Omega, AMONOMEGA on Fur Affinity, and the talented snow leopard Xavian, ZAVIAN on Fur Affinity.
He drew me all hot.
He did. Well, you are all hot.
I'd hit it. I'd do me. Yeah.
And again, thank you. And of course, my better wolfy half, Kit Silver, without whom literally none of this would be possible. Literally.
Hello. To see the video that we shared with Rainforest, please go to YouTube and search for Kyle Gold or Out of Position. Enjoy!